In this lecture, we will learn how we can use SD1.5 base models in Fooocus instead of SDXL base models. These are basically different types of base models of stable diffusion, and at one point it's important to also work with SD1.5 models. And how you do that is subject of that lecture. So let's have a look onto my screen. Good. How can we use now the SD1.5 base models in Fooocus? First of all, normally you could only run SDXL base models in Fooocus, but with a little trick, it's actually possible to also run the SD1.5 base models. And SDXL and SD1.5 are just different versions of stable diffusion. And this is all you have to know at that point, because it doesn't matter what it is, we just want to have the results. And keep in mind that there are also other models like pony models and flux models and so on. But in this course, I stick to the stable diffusion models SD1.5 and SDXL, because I think with these types of models, you can achieve the best results using the methods I show you in this video course. And the trick basically is to use a SD1.5 base model as a refiner model together with the SDXL base model. So we have actually a SDXL base model, and then we use the new model, the SD1.5 model, as a refiner of that. And how you do that, we will see in Fooocus now. It's super easy. Good, I already fired up Fooocus, and as you can see here in the back end of the Google Colab, I also have now another base model installed, the so-called Realistic Vision V60. This is just another base model, and it's a SD1.5 base model. And normally we would not be able to run it in Fooocus because Fooocus is just specified for SDXL, but with a little trick it's possible, and I will show you the trick in a minute. If you don't know how to install another base model, please go back to the lecture where we learned that. Good. And what is now this new base model? I'm here at Civet AI, and I just used this model as an example. It's a SD1.5 model. Here at this section, you always see that information in Civet AI. And at one point, if you want to create, for example, AI influencers or product placement, it's also useful if we can work with other base models, especially with SD1.5 base models. And that's why I show you this trick. Good, this is just an example. We will use this one to show how the trick works, and then we go back to Fooocus. Now we're here in the interface, and as I already showed you, I already loaded this base model. Then we go to Advanced, and up here to Models, we have the opportunity to select our base models. And now, as I said, we have to work with a little trick. So we select a SDXL base model, which would be the Juggernaut XL, which is the default model, or also the Realism Engine. And then here, where it says Refiner, it says SDXL or SD1.5. Here we can use now the SD1.5 model, in this case, the Realistic Vision V60. And then there's a refiner switch, and this just means at what point the model switches between the SDXL model and the SD1.5 model. And as it says here, for realistic models, you should use something below 0.4. And I recommend to also use 0.4 as recommended for realistic images, because this works really, really good. All right, then let's go back to the settings. We use quality as always, and we leave the aspect ratios and everything how it is. We just create one image. We create a JPEG, and we will create an image of a beautiful paradise bird. Let's see what our new base model, the SD1.5 model, makes out of that. So now we are in a generating phase of that image, and please look here at the sampling step. At one point the models will switch, and that at around 24. Now it switched. Maybe you saw it, and now the model basically switched to the SD1.5 model, and it will finish the rest of the image with the new base model. And this is how the trick works. And when you, for example, go to models and you lower that refiner switch, the image is already created earlier on with the new model. But sometimes the results are less good if you set the refiner switch too early, so I recommend just to stay with 0.4. And now our image is done, and if we check out our paradise bird, I think this looks absolutely fantastic. So the new base model did a great job here. And now you learned how you can use SD 1.5 base models also in Fooocus. Just keep in mind whenever you check out the base model that you make sure you actually use a SD 1.5 model or a SDXL model, because there are also other files out there. And whenever you use the SD 1.5 model, please make sure you work with this little trick and you put the SD 1.5 model here in the refiner. Because if you put the SD 1.5 model here where the actual base model should be, you get an error and it won't work. So this is very common, and please remember that.